One of the documents we read for this was a work by Dietrich von Hildebrand, an essay, where he said that the thing that is the most disturbing, perhaps, of the Novus Ordo for him, and I think his opinion is shared by a lot of people, was that the reverence is just gone. And it sort of fits in with what you're just saying. You stop looking, what's the first commandment? Love God. Second one is like it, but it's the second one, love your neighbor. And for him, it was very disturbing that the emphasis became on neighbor and God just sort of came along with came along in the back of the bus. Talk a little bit about the idea of reverence at the Mass and A, why we should have it, and B, why so many people may not really sense it at all in the sort of regular Novus Ordo Mass.
It's very difficult to pinpoint how we can bring all these things together, but the motu proprio of July 7th, 2007, of our Holy Father.
Explain what that is for a moment, Father.
It was a letter that our Holy Father sent to all the bishops of the world to, in some way, clarify something that had been in a state of ambiguity for many, many years. The idea had been left in the impression of many people that the older form of Mass, what was known as the Tridentine Mass, had been abrogated. It had been suppressed. And many, many people had thought that that was the situation. Indeed, myself included, I thought that the only time I would ever see it was paging through the book of This is the Mass with Fulton J. Sheen. I just thought that would be the only way you would see that Mass. But the Holy Father clarified. He said in this letter of July 7th, 2007, he said, A, it was never suppressed, and B, he said, every priest of the Roman Rite has the freedom to celebrate this Mass, and no one can say to him he cannot. And that's a very important statement. However, it's important for us to remember that in some degree it eclipsed the document of Sacramentum Caritatis that was issued 3 months before, on March 16th, 2007. And Sacramentum Caritatis dealt specifically with the reform of the Novus Ordo. And it spoke about Gregorian chant. It talked about everything, vestments, linens, everything. It spoke about the solemnity and the reverence that ought to be brought to bear upon the Novus Ordo. Unfortunately, it got eclipsed in some way by the motu proprio. But we have to start somewhere. And I would love to be able to begin to work upon the reform of the reform in the Novus Ordo. But it is a process of catechesis, of instruction. Whereas with the extraordinary form, I would say that what I have found is that there is almost an instinctive enthusiasm from people who are very much attached, desirous of reverence. And so they have come from far and near to be able to be part of the extraordinary form in that spirit of reverence. And that spirit of reverence is a great gift from God. Why it has disappeared in the churches, we can only say that my sins and yours have contributed to this atmosphere of irreverence. We call to mind Catherine of Siena in the midst of the great schism as she lay dying, seeing the Avignon papacy and the whole thing coming apart. She said, it is because of my sins that the church is undergoing this trial. And we have to say, first and foremost, we have to look at ourselves and say, yes, my sins contribute to the irreverence in all of these things. And that is the one area of influence I can. But I would also say that the way we dress, our deportment at Mass, and our determined effort not to create the church into a social atmosphere, a place where everyone has to talk before and maybe during and after, all the afterwards. We must try to teach by example, and often perhaps even with a word of correction to people, that really this is not the place. The church must be sacred. In a world that is awash with the secularism that drives God out of the world, we must in some way drive the spirit of the world out of the church. And this, I think, is the Holy Father's great desire. He wants to cleanse the temple, so to speak, by bringing back that spirit of reverence, which is indeed a grace from God.
Wow.
Coming from you, Michael Morris, that's very kind.
Wow. That was perhaps, I think you should start writing for the Pope. That was tremendous.
You're very kind, Michael Morris.